Well, in this video, I think I have a pretty fun little project for you to give a try. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be converting this text to Satin text. But what we're going to do is we're going to be using the Fill to Satin tool. And I thought this would probably be one of the most complicated setups possible for Fill to Satin. And so if we were able to master this, then we could probably uh, do anything that we encounter. So this could be an epic fail, or it could work brilliantly, and who knows, right? Until we dive in and really take a look at it and understand it, I don't really know if it's going to be an epic fail or not. So what I've done here is I've just typed out a word. It's Melissa. It's my daughter's name. And I picked this because I have lots of daughters, but this was the longest name of them all. And so I thought, well, this would give us a nice example of a complicated name that we should be able to convert pretty easily. So, um, so at any rate, typed it out. We are using the font of um, Billion Dreams is the font name. Probably could download off the font if you wanted to. Um, but so this is the font that we're going to be using. I resized this to approximately 6 inches. I got 150 millimeters. Yeah. Um, yeah, 25.4 millimeters per inch. So we're at 150. So it's give or take 6 inches wide. Maybe we'll use it for her stocking. Every year I have to embroider new stockings because for some reason we never keep stockings from year to year. So every year I'm embroidering the names on all the stockings every time. So at any rate, let's dive in here and see what we can do. So for this particular project, I think I am going to go to Path, and we're going to go Object to Path, Step 1. So now that is no longer text, it is just a path. And then we're going to break it apart. So we'll choose Path, Break Apart here. Okay, so now we've broken it apart. And now these elements, so maybe we can look at this in wireframe, might help us out a little bit. But so you see the A there, right? So we'll select all of those pieces and hit Control K, and that will combine those. And then we're going to do the same thing with our S, all of our S elements, and hit Control K. And then we have our A again. We will select that and hit Control K. And we're just combining the pieces. Now, if we go back into normal mode, you can see this kind of, quote unquote, looks normal. Now, our next step then is to select all of it. And let's go up here to Path and choose Combine. Or no, I'm sorry, Union. Okay, and what that does is if I go back into wireframe, you can see where all those connections were. They are now just all one. And that's it. Okay. So I did this on purpose to make this deliberately complicated. And I think I've succeeded quite well. So the M here we can convert by itself. So let's go ahead and go back into this mode for a moment. So we're going to convert the M into satin stitches. So what we have to do in our brain, we have to just visualize how we want our satin stitches to be for this M. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and have a satin column coming around all the way straight through. And then we're going to have a little satin column coming up and down all the way to the bottom. And then we'll have another connection coming from there up and down. Okay. So if you didn't understand that explanation, I don't blame you. It didn't sound like a very good explanation. But once we actually get in there and do it, convert it, then you'll see, okay, I understand what he was saying. So let's go ahead and see if we could do this with fill to satin. Like I said, this is what I feel like is a pretty complicated one. Give it a shot. So we're going to go into our pencil tool and we're going to create some rungs. So with fill to satin, we need rungs. You can see right now there's no stroke color on that, so let's give it one. And we're just going to create some rungs. Now, the more you use this tool, the more comfortable you're going to get and know where you need rungs. These rungs that we're adding is giving InkStitch some information as to the stitch angle we're looking for. Okay, so that's how InkStitch is going to interpret that. Now, we have this big area of connection here. And so we need to tell InkStitch exactly what we're doing here, okay? So first of all, you see how this is a little bit rounded here? Let's go into wireframe mode. So you see how this is a little bit rounded here? What we're gonna do is we're gonna nip it, what I call nipping it. So you see how that rung just nips it? And that's what we're gonna do right there. And then we're gonna come up here and we're gonna cut it there. And we're going to come down here pretty towards the bottom. And then we're going to create a bridge between those two. Okay. So all these kind of horizontal things are all rungs. And now we've created a bridge. Okay. So now for this next section, what do we want to do? Well, I want this to come down here, up and around and down. Okay. So I think that's how I want it done. Just let me think this through a second. Well, let me think here. I'm just thinking that it might look a little funny coming around the bend like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a satin column. And then we're going to have a satin column. And then we'll have a satin column. And then we'll have this little satin column connect to this one and connect to this one. And then we'll have another little satin column that will connect. I think that's how we'll do it. Okay. So if that's how we're going to do it, then let's just dive in here and see if we can make this work. So we're going to do a little nip tuck up there. And then we are going to come over here. And then we're going to come in here and create our bridge. Okay, so now we're telling InkStitch we're going to start up here and we want to come all the way straight down with a satin column. And so we'll do the same thing over here. We'll do a little nip tuck action. We'll create another rung up here. We're going to come down in here. Anywhere really, doesn't really matter. And we will come down here. Now the one thing we do want to keep in mind, we do need to cross over. When we're doing rungs, we need to cross over both sides in order for this to work properly. Okay, so that's all good. So I'm happy with all that. And then we always want to cap. So we'll come down here and do a little cap. We don't want to be too close to the end. And we'll just add a couple of stitch angles here. So I think that looks pretty good. So far, so good. Let's see here. We need to do a little nip tuck action right down here. So you can see we just barely got to nick it there. And then we're going to come here. And then we're going to come here. And we're going to create a bridge. Okay, so up here, we told InkStitch to start here. And this big gap, just kind of fill that in. We want that satin column to keep rolling, and then down here we've got another situation, and now we're just going to say, no, you just keep on rolling, okay? So that will take care of that. So now what we have to do is we have to do a little cut action on this side and this side for this satin column. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to come in here and create a line just like that, and then we'll come in here and we're going to come down, yeah, that's good, and a little bridge. Now let me try to explain what I just did there, but it's going to be a little difficult if you haven't worked with Fill the Satin. Where these connections are, where that intersection is, it's going to draw a line from that to that. So it's going to be at a bit of an angle unless I were to just bring it down here. We could even bring that down a little bit farther. And now this is going to be more of a straight line, more in line with what the original was, right? So that's what we're doing. We're going to come straight from there, boom. And then down here, we're going to go straight from that intersection, boom. And I think that's pretty good. I think that's going to work out pretty good. So now we need to do the same thing up top here. So again, we'll grab our path tool, or our pen tool really, and we'll come up here and say, okay, we want it to go there. And we're going to come just to the inside here. And we'll go there. And we'll create a little bridge like so. And I'm not that particular necessarily, because whatever result we get, we can modify it ever so slightly. So I'm not really that concerned right at this moment how precise we're going to get with all this stuff. Okay, so we'll come down pretty far, and then right here, and then right here. So where this is connecting, it's going to connect to there. So I think I'm happy with all of that. And we'll have a little bridge. Okay, and then we got to do the same thing over here also. So we're going to come here, come down, maybe something like that. And where this is crossing over, boop, it's going to create a little line right there. Okay, so there we go. That is it in a nutshell. Now, is it a hot mess? Yes, it's a hot mess. But this should give InkStitch all the necessary parameters to create all of these satin columns the way we need them to be generated. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 satin columns when it's all said and done. So let's give it a go. Keep our fingers crossed. So we're going to do Shift-Alt-S is our keyboard shortcut for Fill the Satin. We're not going to select any of these options and hit Apply. And keep our fingers crossed. Now, something's happened here. It says, please select a fill object. Okay. Well, it doesn't like something, that's for sure. So let's go back into see what could possibly we have done here. So that is our main. Okay, I did not realize that, and that was my fault. So what's happened here is we welded this together, and I forgot that the M, so we don't have rungs over any of this other fill material, and it says, whoa, you can't do that. So we do need this M separate, because see, this M doesn't connect to anything else. So we do need to separate each one of these sections, and I didn't do that. So let's go to Path, and we'll have to choose Break Apart again. Okay, but now what we're going to do is we're going to take our selection tool and hold down the Alt key, and we're just going to swipe through, see that red line? All of those parts of the all, and we'll do Path and Combine. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and do all of this separately. Hold down the Alt key and swipe through everything, and everything that touches that red line, it becomes selected, so the ISAH, and we'll go ahead and use our keyboard shortcut of Combine, Control K, and so now we can convert just the M. Okay, so hopefully we can do this. So let's go ahead and try it. Shift-Alt-S, we'll go back to Fill the Satin, and we should get something. And if we did it right, and look at there, it looks beautiful. So let's see. Let's see. I'm pretty optimistic. So let's go in and look at that in params and see if we do get the satin stitch results that we were hoping for. Indeed, we do. Now, could I mess with this a little bit and mess with this a little bit? Yes, I think I could. Maybe I will, maybe not. But notice how this is kind of rounded because we did the little nip tuck. We did a little nip tuck. All that was rounded. The little nip tuck up here, a little bit of roundedness, a little bit of roundedness. That's why we did what we did. Okay? Now, we are trying to learn about how to get the results that we want. Okay? So this is going to be a bit of a deep dive here, but I want to show you that if you know what you're doing, this is all pretty straightforward. So I want to mainly focus on these two. Let's first of all, let's get rid of this group. So I want to focus on these two columns. Let's look at those separately in params, and I'm going to just show you a little trick here that you may like and you may not. So you see what these look like currently, okay? And I want you to kind of visualize that in your head, that this is what this looks like currently. So we can do everything that we just did with Fill the Satin, and then we can modify our results a little bit. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So that is the path, right? So all we're going to do is we're just going to double click and add a node, and then we're going to take this end node right here, and we're going to come on down. Come on down. Right down. Almost, you could even go right where the other one is started. So we're going to do the same thing up here. We're going to maybe extend this in a little bit, and then double click, add a node, and then we're going to just come on down to where this one is. And you could, like I said, you could do it. Actually, we need to do it the opposite way. My bad. So, so we need to extend the bottom, and we need to come up. You need to come up to the pointy part, the very pointiest part. So you see how that's the very pointiest part, and this one down here was the very pointiest part. So by doing that, watch how different this is. Now I'm actually going to click on this again, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into our pen tool, but we're going to hold the shift key down. And by holding the shift key down, we're going to add to the existing path. So we're just going to add one extra rung. And now watch how differently this stitches compared to this one. Now these are more or less the same originally. So we're going to go into params and just take a look at the differences now between the two. So you see how different this one is compared to this one, all right? So I'm going to kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive here and take a look exactly what's happening here. So let's go ahead and choose Apply and Quit. We'll leave the other one just the way it is. All right, so what's happening here? Well, we don't have enough information. So we're not getting the stitch results that we really were after because we didn't give it enough information. We don't have enough rungs. So let me see here. So first of all, we're going to get rid of the rung that we did have. So let's go back to our node tool. This is a little bit confusing, I know, even for me. So there is the rung that we did have, so I need to get rid of that. So now we have a rung there, a rung there, a rung there, and see this rung right here, right there, we need to get rid of that too. But then we need to go back in and add some, okay? So we'll hold our shift key down, and we're going to add one there. Grab our pencil tool, which is the P key on our keyboard. So now you see we have all of our rungs. I'm going to grab my node tool and I'm going to straighten this one out a little bit. And now let me show you that. Because yes, that's what I want now. So now let's go in and look at that in params, and you'll see the differences between those two. Ta-da! So you see how much nice and cleaner this one looks? compared to this one, just because we did those little simple edits. And that is just getting into the software, playing around a little bit, and figuring out how everything actually works, okay? So now let's go ahead and make those same edits to this one, and then just take a look at it and see how we do it. So first of all, we have to find, there is our rung. So we're going to get rid of the existing rung. Those are pretty easy to see because those lines are extended past the outline of our satin column. And then remember, we're going to do to the pointy point to pointy point. So we can bring this in and then double click to create a node. And then we're going to drag this up to pointy point. Okay, just like so. Okay, and then over here, we're going to do the kind of the same thing. We're going to double click and we're going to bring this down to pointy point. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and add some rails, or rungs rather. So we're going to go into our pencil tool. So we're hit the P key on our keyboard, and you can see that path is selected. So now we're going to hold our shift key down and add some rungs. And of course, rungs are our stitch angles. So now we know how we want this to go. Okay, there we go. And so now we select both of those satin columns. Let's just look at it all together. What the heck? And go into params. And you will see how nice and clean those are just because we made that little tiny change. Okay, and once, like I said, once you really understand all the mechanics of how it works, it actually works quite beautifully, and it's pretty easy to control all this stuff. So we'll go ahead and choose apply and quit. So there you go. There's our first trial and error method there, and I think you can see we did a really good result. So now we can go ahead and continue. So we'll do the ALL because that's all one piece. So we're going to do the exact same thing. So again, we have to think about, well, how is this going to work exactly? So we want a nice satin column coming around, and then we're going to come down here, and then we're going to bring a satin column down here, and then we're going to bring a satin column down there. And that's it. So let's just dive in and follow the order of what we're supposed to be doing. So first of all, we're going to do a nip tuck, right? And if we go into outline mode, you'll see that we did in fact succeed in our nip tuck. So we're going to do that on all of the nip tucks. And we'll do this one. Okay, so everything, tiny little overhang. Now this one is microscopic, but we're going to go ahead and leave it that way and just see if it matters. Now we always want to do a cap. Okay, so there's our cap. And now, let's see, what else do we want to do? Okay, so now we need to tell InkStitch we need to come through nice and easy. So we're going to just come over here, there, and then we're going to come up here, and then we're going to create the bridge. InkStitch, come on down. Okay, now we're going to essentially tell InkStitch to do the same thing over here. So we're going to put a line there, and we're going to come down here, and we're going to tell InkStitch, come on down. Okay, so now it's going to come around. Okay, you don't know any better. So we can add a couple rungs here, even though we really wouldn't need them. So now we need to handle this intersection. So we're going to tell InkStitch, come right here. We're going to come right here, and then we're going to come here and here, and a little bridge, and then that will be taken care of. That will be handled in chop, 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 where it needs to chop, chop, chop. So now we need to do the exact same thing over here. So we will go ahead, make sure that those two are not connecting because we don't want them to connect. And we're going to come right here and come right there and connect. Small little bridge. So now we've chopped that off where we need to, and then we do need to tell InkStitch come on through this intersection. So we'll put one there, and come on through. And then we'll go ahead and add, let's go ahead and add a couple of stitch angles here. Don't know that we need all those, but we'll go ahead and add a few right there. And then same thing here. This is kind of a unique situation because of how this has got to cut. So this is a little bit challenging right here. This is where you're just going to need to get in here and experiment to really get I feel like to really get a good handle on exactly how all this is going to work. So let's just try this. So first things first, we're going to create a line there, and then a line here, and then a bridge. Okay? And then we're going to come from that, we're going to come inside here to here, and then we're going to cut here to here, and we're going to have a bridge. Okay? So that's kind of how that's going to work. All right? And then, of course, we probably do need some additional stitch angles because we've got a real sharp curve here. And then we're going to come out of that curve nice and gentle and then back into this curve. Okay? So that's going to take care of all of that. So now I think I'm ready to pull the trigger, so to speak, and see if that doesn't get the job done. So we'll select all of that. And you can see we only have that selected, so that's good. So Shift Alt S and hit apply and keep our fingers crossed that we did it all correctly. And let's go ahead and close that out. And visually, it looks beautiful. When it visually looks, so when we go into conversion, when it looks the exact same as when we went into the conversion, we convert and it looks exactly the same as what we started with, then that tells me we got the exact result that we're looking for. So, I'm pretty excited about that. So let's go into params, take a look. Okay, so yes, so we did basically get the exact result that I expected. Now this right here is kind of a unique situation. This right here we're going to have to deal with because I'm not happy with how those satin stitches are either. But other than that, this did stitch out the way we expected. So how do we fix it? Well, it's really easy. Now you'll notice that the reason that this looks weird is because we did not have a necessary rung in there to tell it how to handle that corner. And see these? See all these rungs? We told it how to handle that corner, but we didn't tell it to what to do here. So it just made it up, okay? So all we have to do is click that path. So let's, first of all, let's get it out of this group. I don't like groups. So there is our path, right? So we're just going to click on the path with our node tool. We're going to go to our pencil tool and we're going to add in some nodes with our B key selected. Okay, we're going to zoom in here a little bit. And that's going to fix that problem. All right. So that problem is fixed. Where was our other issue? Well, our other issue is here with our A. And that's really caused by the way we handled this. But it's really easy fix. So we're going to just click on our A path here. And we're just going to modify it a little bit. So now this is going to connect here. And then this, right? what we're going to do here, I think the way how we're going to handle that, I'm just thinking here. So you remember previously how we handled this real sharp corner? I might handle this in a similar way. I don't know exactly if that's really how to do it, but I think we will. So this is a straight line, which we really would prefer to have it a little bit rounded. Okay, so something like that I think will work. I'm just going to hit Control L, and that would just reduce our, yeah, Control L. That's just going to reduce our number of nodes. All them nodes really bother me. So we are gonna, what are we gonna do here? Let's get rid of that node. I don't think that helps us too much. And we're just gonna finesse this a little bit like that. Okay, so I am happy with that now. Yes, I'm all happy with that. We have this rung here. And I'm not quite sure. Ooh. See what happened there. Let me undo that. We'll do a straight line. And we'll make this a straight line, and then we'll switch it back to a curve. Because I want to just adjust this just a little bit. Trying to figure out exactly where I want that to connect. And I think I'm happy with that now. So, yes. So now we have this path. And now everything should look much better now. So let's go ahead and get in here and just look at those pieces by themselves again. Now, we don't have anything in the proper stitch order, but as far as the converting into embroidery stitches, this will all look much, much nicer. So you see how much nicer this looked. Now, we can clean this up a little bit, and I think we will go ahead and do that. And the way we're going to do that is the same that we did with these pieces. So we're going to double click here. We're going to come in a little bit on this one. We're going to double click and we're going to come up here. Okay. Now we no longer need that rung, and we're going to switch to our pencil tool, hold our shift key down, and we're going to add two. And now you're going to see that connection is much more beautiful. You'll see that momentarily. So now we're going to move on to our next path here. And we're going to slide that up a little bit, just a little bit. Add a node. Bring this up, not that one. Bring up the other one to match. And then we're going to get rid of our rung that we don't want. And then we're going to switch over to our pencil tool, the P key on our keyboard, Shift key, and we're going to go ahead and just add two rungs, and that will control that connection. Okay, so now we should have much, much nicer results. Let's go back into params. And see how much nicer that looks now. Perfect, right? Very, very pleased with that. So we'll go ahead and choose apply and quit. And we can just keep on moving on to the next section, and we're going to have this licked. So of course, we know what we're doing here, right? We are doing a little nip tuck. Boom, right there. And we're doing a little nip tuck right here. Boom. And so that takes care of that. Okay? And we could do one in the middle. We don't need it, but we could do one in the middle. Let's not. We don't need it. We just need a little nip tuck there. So here, same thing. Little nip tuck. And what that little nip tuck does, because with just a little nip tuck, it keeps that rounded for us. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to tell InkStitch how we want all this to work. So first of all, let's nip tuck this. Okay, so we've got that nip tucked, and then we got to cap it. Okay, and we're going to do that there, and then we're going to tell InkStitch we need to come through, like so. Okay, so now we got the bridge, and now we're going to come swooping through. So now we need to create this disconnect here. So we're going to come right here, right here, right here, right here, a little bitty bridge. Okay, so that takes care of that connection. Yes, we're going to go ahead and add some additional stitch angles for our rungs. Now we need to tell InkStitch we need to come through, play ball all the way through here. So how do we do that? Well, of course, we got to come across here, and a bridge. So now InkStitch knows to play through, and then we're going to take care of this connection. So one on the inside, one on the outside, and a bridge. And now that's taken care of. And now we need to tell InkStitch the same thing. Play through. Okay. So now we've told it, yes, come on down and play through. Now we're going to go here on the inside. Now this is kind of a unique situation here. I don't know that I've ever attempted this where it's like crossing over each other and through the woods. I don't know. So, but that is essentially what we do want. So let's go ahead and add some additional rungs here. It's probably going to need them. This will be really interesting to see how this is handled. All right, so that's taken care of there. And now what are we going to do? Well, let's go back. We do need to add a few rungs over here, I guess. I'm so excited to see this convert. Because this one's going to be a little bit challenging. All right, so now we've addressed all of that, and so let me start back over here. So we want one satin column coming through. So let's do a little nip tuck there, and we'll do a little nip tuck up here. Now that may be a little bit too little. So there we go. All right, so that takes care of that. And then, of course, we need to tell InkStitch to play through. So we want to play through here. And down here. And bridge it. And we'll go ahead and add one more, although I don't think we need it, but we'll do it. All right, so then we need to take care of the cut. So how do I want to do this? Okay, I think what I want to do, all right. So let's nip tuck it here. There's the nip. And then we're gonna do this. And then how are we gonna handle, how are we gonna handle this? Because what I was thinking about doing is coming down here. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and do it this way. I think we could do it that way. All right, come on, and then we'll add some additional stitch angles. We'll do a little nip tuck across here. And then back up a little bit, and we'll do one there. So I think I'm satisfied with all of that. And then we will go ahead and create the inside line, create the outside line, create the little bridge to take care of that connection on that side. And then we'll have to do something similar on this side, but we can't cross over this rung. So we're going to have to come something like this. Now I am expecting to have to make a little bit of an edit up here just because of that configuration isn't exactly how I would like it to be, but it'll work, maybe. I don't really know, but hopefully. So then we will come here and then we'll make that little connection. That should all work now. And then we need to tell InkStitch to play through. Now we've already done this A, so that should be easy for us to figure out. Make sure we have all of our stitch angles there. And we can nip tuck up here. Yes, that's all well and good. So then we got to handle this. So how are we going to do that again? So we did something like this, I believe. And then we turned around. And we're going to do something like this. Like so. And I want to look here, see how that is crossing over. You can't have that. Now we've got rungs over rungs. And that's no good. That's never no good. All right, so that's take care of that. And then we got to take care of this connection here. So we need to tell InkStitch to play through. And then we'll give this some additional rungs so it knows how to go around that corner. There we go. Now it knows how to go around the corner, and then we'll take care of this connection. And right across here. All right, beautiful. So that's a little bit crazy of a situation there. So you can see we've got lines going every which direction, but in theory, I think everything is basically going to convert pretty well for us. Let's hope. So let's go ahead and just select everything. And we have just those pieces selected. We don't have nothing else selected. So let's go ahead and do Shift-Alt-S, do apply, sit back and wait for the magic to happen. And our first goal is when we hit this close is that everything looks the way it did before we converted everything. And everything essentially looks the way it did before we converted. Now we are going to have to go in and make a couple little tweaks here, but basically it is, I think, okay. So let's go ahead and look at it in params. Control Alt P. Almost went back into the stitch, fill stitch. So let's sit back and watch the magic. Now it's, of course, it's not in the proper stitch sequence, and there's some things that we're going to go through and fix. But basically, it does look like we expected it to, more or less, right? I am going to modify this satin column. I am going to modify this connection because I don't really like that connection. And of course, we have to fix this connection, which we fixed previously also. But other than that, all of this looks beautiful. So let me show you how easy it is to fix these things that we want to fix. So let's start here on the H. Okay, first of all, let's get rid of our group. Our group has gone bye-bye. So right here on the H, that is our first step here. Don't know why. There we go. It wasn't deselecting for some reason. Okay, so for this first path here, we want to extend this up a little bit. And this path here, I guess we'll leave that. But all we're going to do is we're going to just double click, remember? And then we're going to drag this up here to that point. And then remember, we're going to get rid of our rung there because we don't need that rung. And then over here, we're going to get rid of this rung because we don't need that rung either. And then we're just going to drag that down, okay? And then we're going to switch to our pencil tool. The P key on our keyboard, hold the Shift key down, and we're just going to add some rungs. So we can tell this how we want this to stitch all nice and pretty. That's it. So that piece has now been taken care of. Now we need to do something kind of similar here on the A. So this piece, okay, we're going to do something similar. So first of all, we can get rid of our existing rung. Control-Alt, delete the rung node. So that takes care of that. And then we're going to come here, come just inside, and we're going to take this node up top and connect those. And then we're going to go to our pencil tool, shift key, and add a couple of nodes. And that's it for that. Okay, so now that's taken care of. And then what are we going to do here? Yeah, we really got to figure this out. So first of all, this path, this straight line here, we just want to, I don't know, give it a little curve at least. Let's give it a little curve. And then we got to take this path, and we're going to straighten that out a little bit. And then we have to take this and kind of straighten it out a little bit too. Maybe not quite so crazy, but yeah, maybe a little bit crazy. Let's hit Control L. Let's get rid of some of the nodes. And then let's see if we can finesse this a little bit. Let's get rid of that one. Maybe even that one. Yeah, I like that better. So we're just going to kind of come around the bend there, and I do like that better. So now we can take this and we can, maybe we can come up here with it, something like that. That's good, and let's just get rid of that. And we'll just kind of straighten that out just a little bit, not too significant. I am going to get rid of that node. And then we're going to, that line segment, let's make that straight. And all we're going to do here is straighten that out, add a node to the back side, and then we're going to connect it right up here. And then we're going to go to our pencil tool, the P key on our keyboard, shift click, and just add probably just one additional. Let's go ahead and do this one up here too. Couple of rungs. Yes, I am going to be happy with that. Yes, I think I am going to be happy with that. I do want to see, okay, we got that. We got this. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, so I think that looks pretty good. So now let's look at that by itself, that last little section. Now again, it's not stitching properly in the proper order, but we want to see what all of our edits do. So you can see here, this looks pretty good, how it's connecting here. We did edit this, and it's connecting nicely now to those pieces. This is connecting nicely, and this definitely looks a lot cleaner. So now all that looks good. Okay? So now that we have it all converted, all done with Fill to Satin, very, very minimal edits afterwards, I think we got a great result fairly easily. So now what we have to do is just kind of set this up in the proper sequence. So we're going to do this piece, hold the shift key down, this piece, then this piece, then this piece, then this. I think I messed up already. Let's go back into, well, maybe that's not going to help us much. It might even confuse us. So let's go back. Let's select that piece, this piece, this piece, then that piece, then this piece, then the A, okay, then the L, then this L, then probably the I, then the lower part of the I. Now this is the part that might be tricky. I want to do this first, then then this. Got to think this through a little bit. Then this, and then the A, the other part of the A, and I'm holding my shift key down this whole time as I'm coming across. Then this, and then this. Okay, so then we're going to go to extensions, InkStitch, edit, and restack. Okay, so now this all should be stitching in order, but we're not out of the woods yet. But let's go ahead and look at it in params. Not quite out of the woods just yet, but we're real close. Okay, so we'll just kind of watch this as it stitches out. Beautiful. Look at how nice that is. Now, what are some of my concerns? Well, let's back up. One concern, let's look at our frogs and see what's happening here. So this jump, okay, that's greater than 3 millimeters. That's what that's telling me. So that's okay. And then what's happening here? There's another jump. Why? Okay. What that's saying is that's greater than 3 millimeters. Okay, I could buy that. So far, so good. And then it's saying there's another thread jump to, okay. So what it's saying is that there's another thread jump right there. So it's going from the I to the inside of our S. You see that thread jump happening there? So we're going to eliminate that one. That one we can eliminate. So we will eliminate that. And then what are we doing here? So yes, that is greater than 3 millimeters. We could possibly get rid of that. We could possibly get rid of that. I'm not 100% certain on that. Maybe not. I don't think we really need to worry about that, to be honest. But then, yeah, then the rest of it just stitches out. So the H stitches out. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. So yeah, so basically, the only one that we really have to address is the I to this little piece of the S. And then everything else, we're just going to leave as is. So I think that's wonderful. So let's go ahead and hit that. So let's look at how we're going to resolve this issue. It's really easy. So this I to this piece here, you see those are in the proper sequence. But we're going to go to extensions and choose InkStitch, and we're going to do the tool stroke. We're going to do jump stitch to stroke. And we'll hit apply. And all it's going to do is going to create us a running stitch from this piece here to this piece here. That's all it does. It creates a running stitch. And so instead of the machine slowing down, it won't need to slow down. It'll just generate, it'll just keep right on going. So I'm just going to do it just a little bit different. So it's going to and start up. And that's it. That's the only tiny little change that we need to make. So let's go ahead and hit File, Save As. I can't believe we've done all that work and never saved it. Melissa text. Okay, and hit Save. And then we'll give one nice look at it here. Back in params. Now, you won't see when you do make those adjustments on that convert the jump to stroke, you won't see that in params. So the only way to see that is to go into simulator. So, which is similar, but now you see how the running stitch kind of goes like that L that we did. So, and then you can see what jumps we truly have in simulator. So we have this little jump because it's too far, and then here we have that little jump from the L to the I, and then we have this little jump from the S to the A. But other than that, that 3 little jumps, hey man, you can't complain about that. That is going to stitch out just fine. Now, this text is fairly significantly large as far as the satin columns go. Let's measure that satin column real quick. So this is, so let's measure that. So yeah, that's about 5 millimeters. So so that is a a relatively wide satin column. So we do want to add some zigzag underlay, perhaps even some contour underlay. So we'll go here in zigzag. We will add the default zigzag there. So for sure, everything's going to get zigzag. And I don't know. I mean, it's not going to hurt to add the contour underlay. And all that does is around the border of each letter. It adds, you see there, it adds that little contour underlay. And sometimes that can be helpful for not with the pole compensation and things like that. So that could sometimes be helpful. Let's see here. We don't have any pole compensation right now. And I don't know, I would probably add at least 5%. That's usually 5–10%, something in that area. You can also add it based on millimeters. So if you prefer to do it that way, and you see it says it's adding 5% to each side. So, and what that does also by adding that that compensation, what that does, maybe I'll add it to the extreme just to illustrate the point for you. But if we go to 30, or yeah, 40, let's do 40, let's live large. But what this will do by adding that compensation, it's recalculating what that ultimately is going to do to our design. But notice where our contour underlay is, and so you see how much that is extending over. I did this, obviously to the extreme, but my point is where all these connections are being made on the script text. By adding a little bit of compensation, you'll be certain that there will be no gaps between this piece of the A and this piece of the A, or this piece of the L, and so on. So just 5% is really probably good enough. But if you can tell, let's see if we can tell. So you see where these stitches, where the end of those stitches are, those are covering that piece of the A considerably. Like there's no chance that there'll be a gap there when we add that little bit of compensation. So that I would definitely recommend that we do that. So there you go. I think you could see. You know what? Let's do one more thing. As long as we're this far in, let's do one more thing. Let's go ahead and look at the stitch plan preview. Even though this will take all day, I will show it to you in real time though. So this will take a couple of minutes here to make this conversion, and it'll just give us a little stitch plan preview. This is one thing hopefully they can better improve the speed on, because it just takes a little bit of time. But there we go, and it's over here to the right. So you see it right over here. Now we can't see it because we're in outline mode, but now you can see, kind of gives us a visual representation of what this is going to look like when it's stitched out. And I think that's just kind of cool how it does that. So that looks pretty cool. Yeah. So that is how to master the fill the satin. And when you're actually doing it, like if I was just to go in here and bang, 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 because I kind of understand the rules, we could do this really quick and easy. Like, maybe 15–20 minutes, boom, knock it out, no problem. And so now, if you're able, like I said, if you're able to master this as easily as we just did, then I'm confident it don't matter what font you come across, you could knock it out very easily because the principles are the same no matter what font we're using. So I hope you enjoyed this one and learned a little something. Thanks for watching.